The gang violence in America's history is a rough one. But I want to start off with a story because gang violence is close to my heart. You see, before I was born, my dad had a brother, and his name was Uncle Cameron. And basically, he was just a good guy, and good guy all around. Good student, and just most importantly, he was the excellent leader. But obviously, things weren't what they used to be. Back in the early 90s in Park Hill, before it was gentrified, um, there was a McDonald's that he used to work at. Now, this McDonald's was in very low income area, meaning that there were no jobs in the other area, and there was a lot of drugs and alcohol being induced into the community at the time. So, here's what happened. My uncle, he was walking down the street in Park Hill, and he had a jacket on and he had a cap on. Now, this jacket was a McDonald's jacket, and it had a blue pattern around the collar, and it was also blue. And he also had a cap on. And this cap, the lip of the hat was blue. And at the time in the early 90s, especially in Denver, the Bloods and the Crips were going at it for such a long time, and still to this day. He was walking down the street, and a man named by Hollywood stopped him in their car, killed him dead on his way to work. And this, you know, violence is such near and dear to my heart is because I have been a bystander in shootings at my job and at a local function of Skate City. So I just want to, let my audience know the importance of why I'm doing this. But I want to go back to the start of the gangs. So let's go back a bit. Let's go back to the early 1800s in London. London was, had everything at the time. But when it happened was these English robbers, they would just rob people, but they weren't called gangs at the time. They were just people who stole from people. And then here's how we get into my main point of how these gangs integrated into New York. So what happened was all of these immigrants had started to go to America. The Jews, the Italians, and pretty much that's basically it. And so they came here for better work, obviously. Now, the gangs first started, they weren't really violent. They were looking to, riot, such as the Dead Rabbits gang. The Dead Rabbits gang was filled with Catholic members of the Irish group, and they were just discriminated against because of who they were. Now, there was another rival gang, and they were the Bowery Boys, and basically they were firefighters, and they did not like anybody, meaning that they discriminated against anybody who was not white. They also went into other black neighborhoods and set ablaze many neighborhoods and killed black people. They just didn't like anybody. So, what the Dead Rabbits gang and the Bowery gang decided to do was, well, they wanted to fight each other. The Bowery Boys were very just, violent. They all just had clubs and cleavers and started killing all these Catholic Dead Rabbits members and even just Catholic people because they didn't like them. And there were this idea of if you weren't white, then you were not you weren't supposed to be in this, gang. You weren't supposed to be here in America, period. And so with that, also, the gangs also, wore certain things and they had certain purposes. So like the Bloods and the Crips, the Bloods would wear red and the Crips would wear blue. Well, the gangs of New York, the Bowery Boys were firefighters, so they would have these shovel-tipped hats, basically what the firemen wore, and they would wear red shirts that were untucked. And also the Dead Rabbits gang, they would also carry around dead rabbits to make themselves look lucky, or even just, scary. Catching a rabbit is very tough, obviously, and so they would carry them on a stick. But I'm just here to inform my audience about what these gangs were and what they did. And I'm just here to inform you on why they did this. Basically, it was just a different lifestyle at the time, and there were a lot of riots and things that were happening. So that is all in all the start of the gangs, and I will get into the, later parts of the gangs. And thank you.